a really crucial moment for this, two cases happening simultaneously in the States.
Well, they're going to foreshadow the entire Trump legal problem from here on in. The D.C. court is deciding on the date of the hearing, which Trump, of course, for January 6th events where he obstructed and tried to change the course of the election illegally. The D.C. date is Trump wants to make it 2 years after the election, of course, whereas Jack Smith, the prosecutor, wants to make it next year in January. And of course, the American people are entitled to have this result and to see the evidence. The other case is in Atlanta to move it to federal court. Of course, he wants to move it to federal court and Mark Meadows and all, because there's no TV in federal court. And so there'll be no transparency. And he knows that if you, as the January 6th hearing showed in Congress, when you see and hear the evidence, he's dropped 10 points in the polls. And so it's very persuasive. 91 counts in these 4 cases of indictments that he has. So this is like an election foreshadowing. The 2 cases today, this is critical. London, be aware. Yeah. This is critical. They will foreshadow the Trump legal problems from here on out.
And there's also an issue with jurors as well, isn't there? Particularly in that second case.
I don't buy that.
Well, the argument is that moving this case out into the federal court means that it will be moved out of an area that is that voted heavily Democrat, and therefore you are likely to get a pool of jurors who've already made their mind up about Donald Trump.
But it's not true because of the voir dire and the casting of the jurors in advance. You get people that say, we will follow the evidence. And they don't lie. Rarely do they lie and take you to a mistrial. In fact, jurors are honest. So I don't think that's the real answer. I think the real reason he wants it is he does not want the TV and the transparency that federal court would block, whereas the Georgia case under Georgia laws. And by the way, the Constitution is very clear. The states run the elections, not the federal government. And, by the way, it wasn't Mark Meadows and Trump acting in their official duties in any way when they're rigging elections and saying, find me 11,780 votes, and don't worry if you change them, no one will know. And if you don't, you could be subject to prosecution and forcing the guy that way. Raffensperger has been a hero, the Georgia Secretary of State, and he's one of the witnesses in this case today. So that's the reason why they're bringing him in as a witness, so he can make that point about the reason not to move the case.
For all of your enthusiasm, your passion for this, Bob, Donald Trump gets more and more powerful every time another one of these cases is presented. Today we're hearing about $7 million in donations raised since the mugshot was released. What does that tell us?
Well, it tells us that prisoner 011, etc., with the mugshot, has 91 counts against him. Everybody forgets that. So he can raise money from his base. But that means that all those indictments are going to be detailed in each case. And when the American people hear the evidence, see the witnesses, and the witnesses, by the way, can come out and talk. So when they see all of that, they're not going to be able to block it. The truth will out. And that's why he's lost the last 3 elections. That's why Joe Biden was able to make a case of democracy as the issue in the last election, and why they didn't get anywhere near what they thought they would get. And the American people made sure that democracy survived. Again, as the last 3 elections, after the one that Comey's news conference changed 10 points the day of the news conference from the day before to the day after. This will happen where democracy is going to be what the American people are voting on. And Biden was told not to make that the issue. He did, and he was right.
He was asked about Donald Trump, wasn't he? And he batted it away. Why? He's going to try to bat away the fact that he was asked about Donald Trump and this particular case, and he said that he said something. He sort of batted it away with he's a nice guy.
He does that with
if he cares so much about democracy, surely he has to really make a point about that now, doesn't he?
He's going to try. But not Trump has been the issue and will be the issue. He's, I don't think, very good at it. He's building his base, but in the meantime, he's turning off the independents and all the Democrats. You can't win with just the 28% of Americans that he dropped during his presidency from 33. He lost a quarter of his base because of what he is and who he is and how dishonest he is. And so as he makes this case stronger and stronger and looks more and more virulent about it, he's losing votes among the people that will make the difference in the presidential election.
Bob, you're a friend of Biden.
Forever, since we were both kids together, and I went to his house when he first ran for Senate.
Tell us what's in his mind right now, the political fight of his life to come. And the perception is, and Donald Trump plays into this, and sometimes maybe it's made too easy for him, is that maybe, and this is a horrible thing to say of one of your friends, but maybe he's not physically up to the job.
Biden has been a bit of a babbler since he has been very young. People now say it's because he's old. It's the same Joe Biden. And he wowed the National Press Corps, and he wowed the Congress when he boxed the Republicans out of saying they would cut Social Security. He said, oh, so you're going to agree you're not going to cut Social Security. He is a master at having gotten bipartisan legislation through, from the infrastructure and the COVID and the Chinese chips and all of that. He's been a master at getting bipartisan legislation where everybody said it couldn't be done. He even got Joe Manchin aboard on the infrastructure bill in the $1.7 trillion that's now building roads and bridges and tunnels and grids and internet across America. And he even got Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, to stand with him at the bridge in Kentucky. So Biden knows what he's doing. He's a master at politics. He's a master at bipartisanship. And I believe what a friend of mine, another friend, we were in Young Democrats together, Jim Clyburn, who's one of his national co-chairs, said, we're going to turn that 8 million votes into a 15 million vote win this time, because the American people are so sick of Donald Trump. As, by the way, your parliament was. You guys were right when you tried to ban him, but Boris Johnson said, no, come anyway. Remember, the parliament voted not to let Trump come here because he's so laughed at by his lack of knowledge of anything international.
How unhealthy is democracy in America at the moment, Bob? Where does it really find
itself? It survived so far, but you got to work to keep it. We have a democracy if you can keep it, the famous saying goes. And we're going to have to do that because they came very close. If Mike Pence, on the opposite of every issue I believe in, but on saving democracy, he was a hero. If Mike Pence can make that point of it, we must honor the Constitution over any one individual, the American people believe the same.
Do you have hope for the future?
Absolutely. It's a phenomenal country. You guys taught us.
Just very briefly, I mean, George Bush and Bill Clinton, you work with very closely.
Yes.
Of course, two sides of the divide. George Bush has been quietly critical of Trump. What is he thinking right now?
Oh, well, he hates him. He thinks he's a disaster, and he said that on the podium to Clinton. You know, it's just it's an embarrassment. And Trump doesn't go to the former presidents when they go to funerals, when they go to meetings. He doesn't go. Because he's too embarrassed. He knows that everybody laughs at him.